So hello guys, hello everybody in the audience. Thank you very much for joining. Right before the break, I would love to remind everyone, there is a QR code outside that you can scan in case you want to get involved in the industry, or each one of our sponsors here, SSV, Aleo, Horizon Labs, they're actively recruiting now and looking for to onboard talent to their team. So you're more than welcome to come and speak with them. So let's start the panel. We call it infrastructure of opportunities. So basically, we're gonna try to explore more what our experts really see as opportunities in the space. And let's start from a quick introduction. So please present yourself and share a unique, like what's unique in your product or technology that you're developing.
Sure. Hi, I'm Howard. I'm a co-founder and CTO of Aleo. Aleo is a new ZKL1. It's meant for developing fully private applications on it. Yeah. Oh, the unique technology is zero-knowledge cryptography here. It's, as Vitalik calls it, moon math. And I've spent, gosh, I don't know, 7 years working on this stuff. So I really love it. It's very much moon math.
So Howard is pretty modest, as you probably noticed. Basically, the vision of Aleo, it's much bigger than what you think. Like if we're looking on Web3 as like a new network that we can transfer value, Aleo, it's a network that you can solve ZK equations. So basically, you can prove things if they happen, like goes aligned to another layer of communication. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Moriah, Waterland. I'm a Web3 architect at Appreciate. It's a startup that's focusing on bringing Web3 to a much wider audience and enabling them to take physical items and link them to their digital twins. And with that, we can issue verifiable credentials and other things that they can have access to a wider Web3 ecosystem.
Thank you. Lior?
Hi, I'm Lior. I'm from SSV, CTO. I've been in the industry since 2012. Joined Blocks in 2018. SSV is infrastructure for a non-custodial way of staking on Ethereum, currently on Ethereum. It helps to make Ethereum more secure and help with a single point of failures. That currently is an issue in Ethereum.
So welcome. Thank you very much for joining again. Thank you very much for the ones who are joining late. So please take your seats. And just please be aware that we're videoing it and try not to walk in front of the camera. So let's dive into the next question. What are the top challenges that your company is facing and how do you handle them?
That's a good question. I think, where do I start? Well, I think at least from a technology perspective, one of the biggest challenges is that the technology where we use this zero-knowledge cryptography is very much early. It was actually invented like 20, 30 years ago, but it's only become very performant in the past few years. And I think a huge part of the challenge is not only from a technical perspective, but then also from a hiring perspective and a scaling perspective and a knowledge perspective that, you know, there's not many people who are familiar with zero knowledge proofs and certainly not many people who are trained in the theory or even the applied cryptography aspects of zero knowledge proofs. And that's something that can make it very difficult to, one, build a team, but also to build an ecosystem around because, well, yeah, there's just new technology that you're actually teaching people about. And that's part of why I'm here, and part of why I gave the talk that I did was to try to educate more developers, to help onboard more people into learning about it and being able to use it. I think a huge part of what we're trying to do, especially right now, is to show that the technology, despite having been very early, is now starting to become very performant for real-world applications.
So one of the biggest challenges that we face is we're trying to create a platform that will allow the users to seamlessly interact with the Web3 and blockchains. And it will just be a behind-the-scenes services that they don't have to be aware of how it works. And given the rapid change of the Most of the technology in the Web3 world, trying to deliver that in a way that's stable and doesn't really change the user experience is definitely a challenge.
So, like Howard said, I think one of the main challenges is to find quality personnel. It's a new industry, especially in staking, and there's not enough expertise. So, first of all, I want to say for all the developers that are here, if you feel that you don't have enough experience, that's fine. Like companies like us, we know that and we take it in account. So that's one of the challenges, finding like good people that will join and we'll learn the basics of the protocols of Ethereum because we are working on the very low level of the blockchain. That's from personnel. From the other thing is the technology. As you all know, the merge happened last week. And
Congrats.
Sorry?
Congrats.
Yeah. That was a big thing. And for us, we've been working on that for the past 2 years, working on something that is evolving and building. That creates a challenge. Sometimes you build something from beginning, and that challenge by itself, but when you rely on something else that's still not ripe, that creates new challenges, working on another stable network. So a lot of technological challenges here.
That's fascinating. So for the entrepreneurs in the audience, when you're like taking these challenges, what you can do?
I think one of the, at least for the problem that we're facing, it's really to educate. I think that a huge part of like growing, especially an organic community in crypto, is about getting more knowledge transferred, getting more people involved, getting more people excited about what you're doing, and frankly, just showing what technology can do that existing technology can't do. But as you can imagine, it's also a very slow process to educate and to solve this particular problem. So, I mean, this is why like at least myself and Anthony, our head of growth, who's here as well, like we take the effort to try to go to as many places to meet with people, meet with teams, meet with students, meet with communities, to try to grow out that type of knowledge base and to grow the knowledge transfer as well.
So what is the profile of the people who are like actually fits to that event that you're coming to?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really comes from three different aspects. I mean, for one, there's obviously researchers because this is a very new field. I think the second is with respect to developers because they want to experiment and try what we're doing. And then the last is certainly in terms of companies like operators. They're always looking for new approaches to solve existing business problems. There was just some that I was talking to here that is like taking existing traditional business problems and mapping it into crypto. Like these are areas that we're trying to look for to try to help solve, since I mean this is obviously a very new technology and it's ripe for different types of disruptions.
Great. Moriah?
And a lot of people have compared the early days of the World Wide Web and the rapid growth of all of the services and features that became available to the way blockchain and Web3 is evolving. And I absolutely think that's true. I think we're still in infancy days, and there are so many opportunities to help expand, use this technology in a lot of markets that have almost no exposure at this point. And so there's more opportunities than we can even think of.
So SSV is building infrastructure. We call it a reusable infrastructure for staking. And the market is crazy. Like what we expect after the merge is that more Ether will flow to staking. Right now, 10% of the Ether is staked. And post-merge it will increase by a lot. So that creates a lot of money that is flowing and a lot of opportunities for all the entrepreneurs here that's sitting here. There are so many ways how you're gonna do that, right? Like the merge changed a lot of stuff. Now we have fee rewards, how we manage those fee rewards, how we utilize that, right? Staking pools, there are so many things that are going on right now in the staking industry, and that's just one thing in all the crypto industry, and that's huge.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. So you all mentioned that you're hiring, and can you tell us more of like what is the profile and how like most of the people are like, we know there is a lack of domain experts. You all also touched that. 3 of you are CTO, like you two are CTOs, and Moriah, you're a chief architect, high ranked C-levels. How do you actually help juniors to get involved?
Do you want to take a stab?
So one of the approaches that we've been trying to take is starting out with taking experienced software engineers and introducing them to the Web3 crypto space so that they can absorb that information a lot faster, and they already have good software engineering principles. And so once they have some of that domain knowledge, we can bring in junior engineers and they can give them the full scope of the picture, not just this is what the Ethereum blockchain is like, just run these commands and it's good. But they can actually teach them and mentor them into being a really solid developer that understands the scope of the problems that we want to solve. And I found it to be pretty effective. It's just always about the balance between getting the people to work on what you need right now and mentoring new people. And it's just, and pair programming has actually been one of the most successful methods because people absorb so much just seeing the individual choices the experienced developers are making when they're coding.
Can you give example for the perfect pair?
So we had I have a developer with 20 plus years of backend experience who spent the last year coming up to speed in blockchain Web3. And so he already has like a reasonable grasp of a lot of pieces. And then we had a fresh college hire. And so we were working on doing the first draft of the first prototype of a verified, of being able to issue verifiable credentials. And when we originally let the junior program start working on it, and then what we could see is that as soon as we paired, then he started, the juniors program started being able to understand the mentality of how to make a solution that will ultimately be able to be used, be able to be scaled, etc. So I could see the difference in the way the junior engineer thought from the span of like a month and a half. Like
Mm-hmm.
I could see him growing.
Is it work also remotely?
Yeah, everything is remote. So the company is based in the US and there's engineers in Ukraine, Turkey, Israel, all over. And it's interesting trying to span all of those time zones, but I think it can be done. You just have to work at it.
Cool. Howard, tell us what's going on in Aleo.
I was going to actually echo the point that remote environments has been probably the biggest challenge in terms of growing a team. And the opportunities with that, of course, are that you get to hire really good talent in different parts of the world, because especially when it comes to zero knowledge, in our case, it's like there's no one central hub of like ZK researchers and developers in one place. Like there's different universities that will have really good professors who kind of train or teach one or two good students that come out a year, and like you want to really go and find them and find opportunities to collaborate with them. But also the research centers and the development centers for this are kind of spread everywhere. Crypto itself is decentralized, and like this has been one of the kind of bigger challenges, growing a team and growing a team culture. I think that's where personally I found team on-sites to be actually very helpful, because you get to know each other, especially for new hires when they join. Like the problem is they don't know what everyone is like, and like when you're behind just like a Slack screen, for example, like and they send a message, like it's really hard to interpret whether they're being polite or they're being very rude, because it can read the same, and unless you know their personality, it's very hard to interpret that correctly. And so that's been something. So now that the pandemic is starting to finish and things are returning to normal, like we've done a lot in terms of actually having on-sites and certain of having like a hybrid work environment. So people come in 2-3 days a week, people work from home 2-3 days a week, and this way it gives more of a chance for people to like cross collaborate. Because I felt like when the pandemic started, one of the biggest problems that came up, in my opinion, was the lack of what I call like water cooler chit chat. It's like the spontaneity of new ideas comes when you're in the abstract, and there's no risk to basically say kind of silly comments or kind of funny remarks with each other, because like it's a way to spread or share ideas. And like if you're writing those things on Slack, well, it kind of makes you look dumb, right? So like this is that type of environment where you want to create something that's healthy for people to actually like have a chance to interact, to share ideas, to cross collaborate, cross pollinate. And I found that at least like this has been a very useful mechanism.
Yeah, so that's definitely one of the main challenges of like remote teams. Like they don't have the kitchen talk, they don't have the cooler line like to speak with each other and just to be goof. What else do you guys do to cap it?
I think the other thing that we also do has at least been with regards to just being transparent about the problem and extending it out to the community. Our Discord and Anthony and also Viv on our team help run this. There's 30,000 plus people on there, and like we oftentimes will basically like go out there to them. We have what we call ambassadors that are a part of from regions in our community, and we basically outsource the problem to them and say, hey, look, this is a problem we're having, and like basically you try to make it transparent and share the problem with other people to try to get, because at the end of the day, like other people will have access to resources or networks or companies that we don't know about, and it's important to try to spread the problem. And like this has, at least for us, been a very successful way to try to solve a lot of issues. Just basically being upfront, telling people, and outsourcing, and trying to get more people involved on this.
Great. Where most of your team is based?
Most of the team is based in the U.S., in San Francisco, and in New York. We're actually just opening up a new office in New York that's going to be quite large, and building a bigger hub there. As you guys have probably seen during the pandemic, a lot of crypto folks moved from San Francisco out to either New York or Miami. Some have also
Puerto
moved
Rico.
Puerto Rico. Some are now in Austin. So crypto is really spreading, but San Francisco it's still there, but it's not where it used to be. And that's where for us also we're trying to build out a bigger base in New York as well.
Cool. What's up with you guys, Lior?
Yeah, I think we started by looking for unicorn people, like people that understand in networking and security, and we saw it was hard because there's not enough people in the world with this experience. It's a new industry, kind of. So we did two things. One of the things we did in the company is, so we also have remote developers, but we also have the base core in Israel. What we started to do is a lot of education. We have every week or two somebody from the team, from the company that explains and teaches us about different types of technologies and things. Just today we had a lecture about DAOs, what different type of DAOs there are and how they operate and what's the differences in that. And 2 weeks ago we had about consensus mechanisms, what different types of consensus mechanisms are, what security concerns in networks. So we slowly educate everyone step by step. But I think like the other approach that we took, and I think it's maybe a little bit different, it's more came from Ethereum protocol, is we started to work with specs. So it's very technological. We don't have a product manager in that case, like how do you build a blockchain network, right? So we started to write specs, and we wrote tests for those specs, allowing new developers that coming and maybe not feeling very secure about diving to a very low-level technology and blockchain. So they can work against the specs, see the examples, they can run tests and make sure, giving them a place to show their skills without being afraid. And I think that's important for people that joining this industry. And they say, okay, I have 5 years experience as a Go developer, and I'm pretty strong, but okay, I never wrote a blockchain and a distributed network, right? So I think like specs are really helping us to build them confidence in that case.
That's really interesting. It actually made me think while you're presenting the answer that you guys are a DAO, right? Like you're actually your specific company that you work for was hired by a DAO to provide specific tasks. How is it?
Well, DAO is very interesting. We, as Blocks, as a company, we operate under the DAO. And for me, it's fascinating. We've been working about 1 year with the DAO since the DAO was established. And it's crazy how fast things are going on. We have such a big community, and we have groups, and things go in parallel, and there's no like decisions that become only one person or two people that make decisions about everything. And it's great. We have like about 10 different types of committees, like ambassadors and stuff like that. Some of them are doing marketing, some of them doing PR, some of them are giving grants. And it allows us to focus on the protocol, right? Focus on the core product. So it's evolving really fast, and that's what's fascinating me about it. I think it's the future. Of course, there's a lot of challenges, a lot of interesting things to consider. And we're learning while with every day. But I think at the end we work faster now in all the aspects, and as I said, it gives us focus on what's important.
Okay, so you also mentioned that you're granting, and you also, Howard, you mentioned that. Can you walk us through like which type of project you're granting? What is the granting process?
Yeah, so first off, in terms of just grants, we're always looking for new grants, but there's a few categories that we tend to prioritize. I mean, first is gaming, identity and auth, in terms of DeFi, but there's also other areas that are more exploratory for us in terms of oracles, in terms of machine learning that we're looking at. We're always looking for people who want to build tools and infrastructures, so explorers, wallets, you name it. Like, these are different facets of an ecosystem that we think need to exist. And for building a new L1, which is a pretty ambitious move in my opinion, like you need to have kind of all these pieces in place in order to make it work. So like, just to start off, like, what are the areas? It's kind of everything, but what I've named are kind of the main focal points. In terms of the process, I mean, this is where Anthony and also Sam on our team are the ones who typically are the reviewers of grant processes. So we have a grants application, you fill it out, you submit it, it gets reviewed, we get on a call, we hop and we basically discuss the idea. And it's an iterative process because at the end of the day, like, our tech stack is also very early until we reach mainnet. The stack is changing and it's intentionally changing. We really want to make sure that we get in every feature and every need that people want on a platform like this before the cake gets baked. The analogy I often like to make is, like, it's really hard to add chocolate chips into your cake after it's been baked, and like the EIP process sometimes can feel like that. So, as an ETH dev, I will say, no offense to them, like, it's just, you want to make sure you want to get the chocolate chip cookies in before the batter has been set. So like, that's for us something that we really try to do, and the grants program has been very helpful for us on this front. It's given us the ability to see what people are excited about, what they're not, what features we're missing, what features we haven't thought about. Also, they come up with some very interesting ways to use the stack that we sometimes don't anticipate. These are things that, for me, it's just been really nice and helpful to see. Like, there's also been work to try to use this cross-chain or cross-protocols. That's also phenomenal. Like, it's just different ways of composing things that I just would not have otherwise realized.
Great. Lior, tell us more about the process in your...
Yeah. So SSV is what we call reusable infrastructure. It actually allows different staking providers to become non-custodial and decentralized, as we mentioned before. And the DAO have a grant committee that's actually not related to blocks, and it's people from the community that was chosen by the DAO, professional people. And I think, like, we gave over in the past half year, 8 months, almost $2 million in grants, from micro grants of $5,000 to $200,000 grants that building on top of SSV. First of all, that's a great opportunity to enter, like, in the crypto world, is go to DAOs and just like try to get some grants to work on. SSV is known also as DVT, and it's actually on Vitalik's roadmap for Ethereum. So there's a lot of hype behind it. So it's pretty easy to find people that want to build on top of it. And there's a lot of excitement, and yeah.
Moriah, can you walk us through, like, when your company started? Like, did you get grants? Like, I know you guys work today with Solana. You're trying to create that multi-chain solution.
So when part of the original idea behind the company was to look at markets that had no exposure to Web3 and blockchain. And so the company chose, like, luxury handbags, right? Most of the owners of luxury handbags are not huge into the Web3 space. So the founders had a seed round, and with that, they, like, focused on a subset of users that we could then use to build a generic product, a product that is solid enough that it can easily scale to to pretty much any physical item, hopefully, eventually. And then we also part of the big challenge is to try to build something that can use the blockchains but isn't too closely tied to a particular one. And that's
agnostic.
As all of you. Yeah. So agnostic is the goal. In reality, it's challenge. But we're actually working on a platform that we believe will we hope will standardize a communication layer such that we can much more easily communicate end-to-end encrypted to portals for the different blockchains. So that's our big current vision that we're delivering.
IBC is like the new buzzword, you know. It's kind of like
Yes.
every new entrepreneur,
Yes.
like new company in the space, is like we're doing IBC, which
Yeah.
stands for inter-blockchain communication.
Yes.
And
Absolutely, and it's what we really want is like to build a platform that's solid enough and have a integration portal such that other businesses that have never been involved in the Web3 blockchain space can, with not massive changes to their existing services, integrate in with that ecosystem. So there's tons of opportunities out there.
okay, let's walk to the next opportunity. We kind of like touched that already. The merge. Yeah, as you all know, probably Ethereum decided like after 2 years about when they started planning that.
5.
5, like
Yeah, more
5
like 5.
planning, 2 years of actually running the second layer. And basically it happened like a week ago, 2 weeks ago, 9 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 43 a.m. Israel time.
Nice.
Yesterday I just looked on the screenshot.
All right.
Walk us through. What's the new opportunities there,
Wow.
Lior?
First of all, the merge is, I think it's the biggest event. I'm pretty sure it's the biggest event that happened in the history of all the blockchains. Something like in the scale of Ethereum that changes all of the technology while running on the way. And maybe you heard about the merge in the past few weeks, months, but there was a lot of work behind it with the core developers of Ethereum. A lot of way to go through, so it was very anticipated. We've been working on the merge for the past 2 years. We've been preparing for that. So from that perspective, that's amazing. I'm not sure there's going to be another that scale of event, even in the future of crypto. It creates a lot of opportunities. So what is the merge? Basically, there are no miners anymore, and all the economics of miners switch to stakers, to validators. So there's a lot of opportunities here. Like money will flow, staking will become mainstream. Right now, about 10% of all the Ether is staked, and it's expected to grow, right? Whether from, it can be anything, whether from its financial considerations or, as we said, more low-level solutions. Opportunities are there. It's like don't think that it's a place where it's a red ocean. It's totally a blue ocean, and we see based on the companies that are already starting to work with us and prepare how much hype behind it and how much opportunities there are. They're coming with a lot of great ideas. Like you can think about fee rewards. Right now, validators start to get fee rewards, right? So who is managing that and how you do that?
Share with us some of the ideas. Share with us some of the opportunities. Like when we talked before that, you mentioned some opportunities between custodial to non-custodial. And of course, we're all going to refer non-custodial, but tell us more why.
So we all know the risk of custodial, right? Like whether if it's financial risks or, like human error. The developers did a mistake. Like when you have a custodial service, which most of them are today, staking services are. Your options are either to be a solo staker, and which is a very technological way to go, or choosing a staking provider. So one of the challenges that we want to accomplish is keeping Ethereum decentralized and non-custodial, having like money flows only to Coinbase or Kraken, and them to do the staking. That's not great. And what SSV is doing is bringing that. It's taking staking services. It's an infrastructure that can give for staking services a way to be non-custodial, to become non-custodial. You have a business model, do whatever you want. There's a lot of opportunities to do stuff. You can do a staking pool, but it can stay non-custodial and decentralized, and making Ethereum much more secure.
What about validators that runs on cloud provider?
So everything today runs on cloud provider. We talked about it.
I told
with-
you I'm
with the-
not
with-
going to be easy on you.
That's great. With SSV, maybe like people don't know here, so I'll say it briefly. SSV allows take a validator, breaking the private key into shares, and then distribute it among a few different places where each share is not a security concern, right? And it also allows to create a threshold. And then you ask, and they said like, hey, what if cloud providers, it's an issue, right? So you can take your validator, break it down to few shares, right? Let's say 4 shares, put one on Azure, one on AWS, one on Amazon, and one to have a NUC computer in your home. And then you create a way of like, even there's some problem with the cloud provider, you'll still be fine because it allows with the threshold for your validator to be safe.
Howard, what do you think about the merge?
First off, I would echo everything they were saying in the sense that the merge is a huge feat of accomplishment. It's also, in my opinion, a demonstration of decentralization. It's an amazing demonstration of it, in part because you have teams from different parts of the world coming together to basically make this one thing happen at this one point in time to this one very complex thing. And a lot of the open questions for me are really left on what happens post-merge, because there's still a lot of work to be done. There's also new types of dynamics that we didn't see before in ETH1 that we now see in ETH2. I'm personally very interested to see, how decentralization will continue from here. Obviously, there's the running discussion at the moment on Coinbase and Lido, and the risk with respect to Tornado Cash and OFAC, and the ability for potentially there to be censorship. And these are things for me that as a person who cares a lot about privacy, about decentralization, I obviously cherish the ability for these systems to remain open and permissionless for all. I think that's where, at least especially in the US, like freedom of speech is a very big deal. And I think that this idea is going to be tested at least within US courts at some point. I don't know when, but I can see it coming. And I would say I've very much been thinking through, especially in the lens of Ethereum, what should we be thinking about as neutral infrastructure? What should we be thinking about as compliant or regulated infrastructure? And I think that with a lot of the merge that's now, or the merge work that is now mostly done, you have a network that should be considered neutral. And I think especially for the RPC providers like Infura and also the decentralized RPC pools that are being built on it, these should all be considered neutral infrastructure, because at the end of the day, these are data providers. And for me, this is an area that I'm looking very closely at, because I think the merge has shifted the balance in power from miners into validators. This has obviously been phenomenal for energy efficiency. It's also been a great showing of strength and force for the community. It also opens up new avenues with respect to staking. And now I'm just kind of looking at saying, what next in terms of how that dynamic kind of shifts and what the implications that will have in the real world.
I want to say one thing about it. Like you mentioned about censorship, and that's great because it's a new discussion that's arising. So if you don't know, censorship is now there's a talk about, okay, what if the blockchain have transactions that needs to be censored or regulated, right? So what Shauli you mentioned about custodial, what's the advantages, disadvantages of that? So imagine a custodial service is under regulation, right? Like a company in the US have regulations, and SSV helps with that, because if I'm a company, but my infrastructure is running on a decentralized way, in a non-custodial way, then I don't have to do those censorships, right? So yeah, a lot of challenges happening with the merge and a lot of things to solve. That's what's great about it.
I was really excited to see how smoothly the merge went, and I agree that it was not miraculous, but it was a feat of a lot of people working really hard and together. And I think that was, it's a good sign for how blockchains can evolve. And so I know there's a lot to sort out after, and everyone's still waiting to see the decentralization and how that's going to shape up. But I think that acknowledging that we help make that future, and that more active all of us are, we can help shape, especially you guys, how decentralized it will be.
Great. So let's talk more about ZK, because that's kind of the most involving space, and probably the ones that's bringing so many opportunities now when there are new projects entering the space, and every roll-up solution call himself a ZK. Howard, tell us more. Like, you've been here for quite a long time in the space, you saw it evolving. What is actually new? What's really changed the needle? What's made the new changes that we're now about to see, let's say, in your V3?
So yeah, it's a really good question, because as you guys probably see on crypto Twitter, there's like a lot of buzz about ZK and there's a lot of marketing, but the question is kind of what's real, what works, what doesn't, and what's to come. I guess on a high level, the first thing, the premise is that like zero knowledge proofs were invented in the 1980s. So they've been around for a while. It's not new technology per se. The idea has been around, but it was only 10 years ago that this technology suddenly became practical to be actually executed on modern computers. Zcash did a really good job, and this was in 2015, 2016, when the first type of zero knowledge application for like that was really mass recognized was deployed, which was basically payments, private payments using zero knowledge proofs. And at the time, and I mentioned this in my talk earlier, at the time on my laptop, I remember day one when it came out in October 28, 2016, I like tried sending a payment with it on my MacBook, and it took 2 minutes on the thing, and the thing was crying by the end of it. Like the fan was just worrying, like it was about to overheat and die, but it worked, and like I could send the payment, and I was very happy about it. And like if you fast forward 2 years later to 2018, when they did this major upgrade to the system, the proofs got way better. It was like 3 seconds on a smartphone, you could send a payment now. And like that's like the trajectory of the Moore's Law of ZK. Since then, 2 years later, then universality, which is like a very important property for these types of proof systems, came out, and it made it easy to deploy any type of program you want to write in it. And most mid-sized programs now run in under 10 seconds, and large-scale programs like like machine learning models and stuff like that can run in under a minute for things that typically would run 2-3 seconds on a native kind of computation. So I think the arc of what you're seeing in ZK is that there's definitely like a Moore's law happening. I think the technology is getting really hot right now because people are realizing, wait a second, I can actually use this to like verify block headers. I can use this to compute taxes. I can use this to create a bank account. I can use this to play games like Battleship. I can do new things that I couldn't do before in a verifiable manner. And certainly within Web3, I think the biggest value add has been its massive unlock of what you can do in crypto. In crypto, everything today is fully public, so you can only do public-based things. And like what ZK lets you do is actually start to add in private things as well, so you can get the full spectrum. And at least what we're building with Aleo is a new L1 that gives you that full spectrum of full public to full private. So a fully public application, maybe like chess, doesn't matter if it's seen by everyone. A semi-private application like voting, where you want to hide who you voted for, but you want everyone to see that the tallies for party A versus party B are correct. And then fully private application, maybe you want to build like a dark pool. Like there's different ways to kind of think about this, but the idea is to say that there's a spectrum to the problem.
And how do you see traditional companies adopting it?
I think a lot of traditional companies are going to adopt this because you now have this ability off-chain to basically execute computations and prove things about real-world data and real-world information. Like oftentimes PII, just personally identifiable information, doesn't want to be leaked on-chain. And I bet this is a case that you guys run into a lot. And like that's where today the best solution really is an enterprise blockchain that's permissioned and private. But tomorrow my hope is that we go into open permissionless public ledgers where you also can have private state in it. And like that for me is just like the biggest kind of transformation, I think, is that ZK is going to unlock for Web3 real-world applications.
All right, Lior, do you want us to add something?
And that's absolutely true. So especially with the rise of decentralized identity and verifiable credentials, like they already have kind of built-in hooks for zero knowledge proofs, but the technology is still so young that there's having an actual solution that we could deploy to users is still, I think, a little ways off. But I'm really excited to see the advances you guys are making, because I think that will make a huge difference in being able to finally let users like consent to their data use. They could actually control it, and they could only expose what is absolutely necessary for buying a cup of coffee and not the rest of their identity.
Okay, so we're about to wrap. And before we're going to do that, give us your next best thing, like your point for the future. In the next bull run, what's going to shine the most?
Oh, man. Is the SEC watching or?
It does not have to be a cryptocurrency. It's like could be a segment, technology.
Well, I'll say in crypto, I think DAOs are going to be big. Like, I know DAOs are already big, but I think they're going to get even bigger. But why? Because like it's this like collectivism, this ability for people who don't know each other to come together and make decisions and contribute to an idea that they all believe in. That's something that at least in crypto, that's what crypto's about. Like, and I think that that's going to be just one of the biggest changes is just the ability for DAOs to easily be spun up. In the US, we also are now starting to legally recognize them as legal entities. Like, there's a lot more privilege that's being bestowed to the concept of DAOs. I think that's going to be very exciting. I'd say also just quickly outside of crypto, I mean, I've been watching like the DALL-E 2 Stable Diffusion, this type of stuff. Like, oh my gosh, like with the things you can do with it. So yeah, that's an area that I, as just a nerd, I love that stuff.
You can use all the GPUs that
exactly.
you don't need for material.
I know. I look forward to using that and proving it in zero knowledge one day. But yeah, that's the hope.
I think DAO is. I'm sorry. I think what Harold said. I so much agree with that. I think DAOs are like the next thing. Like they already are, as he said. But adding that with strong communities, I think projects that have strong communities, strong Discord servers with a vibrant communities, and how those DAOs will choose to perform, whether like to really delegate stuff to small groups and small professional groups. And I think that DAOs that will manage to do that successfully, they will shine.
So I would concur with what you guys said. DAOs, there's so little, such a small amount of the potential of DAOs has been realized thus far. There's an amazing amount we can do with it. And in conjunction with that, I think we'll see, what I hope to see is that intellectual property will start to migrate to like things like NFTs, which would probably be controlled by DAOs. And we can actually see a whole new way that people can own intellectual property and be able to easily allow other people to use it and control how that's coming out. And I know people are even coming up with new structures for licenses, people like a new CC license essentially to try to address the complexities of Web3. So that's the future.
Okay, so we'll need to wait and see, and by that time you're gonna come to the next panel. I'm gonna wrap it here. Thank you very much for the speakers who came and did the long travel from the US and from Tel Aviv.
Hey, the traffic is crazy here.
We're going to take a break now for like half an hour. I just want to remind you all for another opportunity that we forgot to mention. If you guys are entrepreneurs or are looking for Amazon AWS credit, please come to us. We have credits for that. Cheers. Enjoy your break.
Thank you.